Welcome to Dark Knight Films Reviews and another special ranking video. Tonight, I will be ranking the films in my favorite franchise of all time, A Nightmare on Elm Street. I grew up on this franchise and saw Part 4, Freddy's Dead, Freddy vs. Jason, and the 2010 remake in theaters. Robert Englund is and will forever be my favorite horror actor of all time. So without further ado, let's get to the rankings. Oh, and I am including the TV series Freddy's Nightmares, as it does include Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger. Number 10. Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare, released September 13, 1991, directed by Rachel Talalay and written by Michael DeLuca. Oh boy, where to start. I saw this movie in theaters in 1991, and remember even at 7 years old thinking, my god, this movie sucked. Nothing redeemable in my mind, except maybe the soundtrack and the backstory of going into Freddy's head to his childhood. Other than that, avoid this piece of shit like the plague. Number 9. A Nightmare on Elm Street, 2010, released April 30th, 2010, directed by Samuel Bayer, written by Wesley Strick and Eric Heiserer. Well, my biggest problem with this movie isn't Jackie Earle Haley as Freddy, not even Rooney Mara as Nancy, but the gutless writers and directors who for nearly 2 hours made us believe perhaps Freddy was innocent, which would have been a great jump start to a new franchise. Only to turn around and say nope, he's guilty after all, because we don't have balls. That's my biggest issue, and why it's number 9. Number 8. Freddy's Nightmares, the television series, debuted on syndication in 1988 and lasted for 2 seasons, just not very good. Opening episode, entitled No More Mr. Nice Guy, was really good, as it was a prequel to the movies with Freddy as a human on trial and set on fire.
Go ahead, you pig! Come on! I'd rather burn up than fade away! I'll be back! I'm free!
Rest of the series, not very good. Number 7. A Nightmare on Elm Street, 1984, released November 9th, 1984, directed and written by Wes Craven. So, here's a controversial pick. I know, how dare I? But this is my list. While I completely understand and respect the history of this movie and what it did for horror, I personally have always thought it's a bit overrated. The effects don't look nearly as good in hindsight, but I can overlook that. It was made 40 years ago after all, and Robert Englund was phenomenal. My biggest gripe is that the most interesting character, Tina, is killed 20 minutes into the movie, and Nancy, who's not nearly as interesting or as well acted, I might add, is the one we follow. Sorry, never got into Nancy. Number 6. Freddy vs. Jason, released August 13th, 2003, directed by Ronnie Yu, written by Mark Shannon and Damien Shift. Okay, so after waiting so long for this movie, I did enjoy it. Still do. But the biggest issue I have with it, I can't get past. The name on the title is Freddy vs. Jason, not Freddy vs. Jason vs. 2 annoying teenagers. Couldn't have cared less about the surviving characters. Linderman, played by Chris Marquette, Freeberg, played by Kyle Labine, Officer Stubbs, played by Lachlan Monroe, Kia, played by Kelly Rowland, and Mark, played by Brendan Fletcher, were all way more interesting and fun characters than Laurie and Will, played by Monica Keena and Jason Ritter. And when the final fight happens, and those two stick their nose in it, I lose all love for this movie. I simply didn't care anymore. Number 5. A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors, released February 27th, 1987, directed by Chuck Russell, written by Russell, Frank Darabont, Bruce Wagner, and Wes Craven. So here's another controversial one, I'm sure. The consensus favorite of the sequels, but for me, incredibly fun, incredibly entertaining, but a tad bit overrated. Great kills, fantastic dialogue, but for me, just something was missing to keep it out of my top 4. It does have my favorite Freddy line, though.
Fuck the prime time, bitch!
Number 4. Wes Craven's New Nightmare, released October 14th, 1994. Directed and written by Wes Craven. A fantastic movie. Even though it's number 4, it's definitely my number 1 Wes Craven nightmare movie. The real-life actors portraying themselves with a demon Freddy after them. Great premise and ultra-fun movie with some fantastic kills and great lines.
There's nothing there.
Hey, Dylan. ever played Skin the Cat?
Help me.
Number 3. A Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child. Released August 11th, 1989. Directed by Stephen Hopkins, written by Leslie Bohem. Coming off the massive success of Nightmare 4, Nightmare 5 continues the story of Alice, played by Lisa Wilcox, and Dan, played by Danny Hassel, as their relationship grows and Alice becomes pregnant. The child, however, dreams, and Freddy uses his dreams to come back and go after his arch-nemesis. While considered one of the worst if the franchise universally, as you can see, it's one of my favorites. I love the storyline, the acting from the principal actors is great, and the deaths, while not many, are very creative and fun. I know most will disagree, but I love this movie. Number 2. A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master, released August 19, 1988, directed by Rennie Harlan, written by Brian Hegeland and Ken and Jim Wheat. So, the first movie I ever saw on the big screen. My first on-screen crush, Lisa Wilcox as Alice. It also features Brooke Theiss as Debbie, who happens to be the nicest celebrity I ever had the opportunity to meet at Texas Frightmare 2016. This movie, in a word, is fun. 100% fun. The effects done by KNB, John Carl Buechler, and Screaming Mad George are tremendous. The acting is very strong, and the story, while many say there isn't one, I think is very strong as well. Freddy is his most entertaining, yet still incredibly violent. A very satisfying conclusion as well. Check it out if you have not. Number 1. A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge, released November 1st, 1985, directed by Jack Shoulder, written by David Chaskin. After the release of the original Nightmare, which was a box office hit, Bob Shaye and New Line decided to quickly greenlight the sequel. And while to some people this movie isn't very good, to me, it's my favorite of all the Freddy movies. Freddy is never darker or more evil than in this film. I absolutely love the pool party scene.
I'm here to help you.
Help yourself, fucker! You are all my children now.
The BDSM gay dynamics is very interesting and gives this movie an undertone that for me the rest of the franchise tried to duplicate and never could. I love the idea that the power of love could take out the dream demon. Well, there it is, my ranking of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. If you agree, great, and if you don't, feel free to leave your list down below, and be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to click that bell icon so you don't miss a video. Thanks for checking out my video. If you missed last week's video, click the link above. And if you missed any of the other ranking videos, check out this playlist.